Welcome to another episode of Heroic Hotline. We are extremely happy to welcome the Catholic gamer, Alex, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct, Sean.
So, Alex, what's your last name again?
My name's Pacheco, Alex Pacheco. So,
Okay, yeah, I wasn't quite sure on the pronunciation, so it's better to
yes,
ask than butcher it. So,
absolutely.
welcome to Heroic Hotline. We host this weekly show just trying to reach men and talk about what's happening in their lives. And I know as a father of 8 kids that, especially my boys, gaming is a big part of their life and many young men. So that's why I was quite excited to get you on here and just talk to you. Your company's Intercession Gaming, and you're the Catholic gamer. So where did this come from? How did this start for you?
So, in all honesty, it started during the pandemic. A little bit before that, was playing video games with my kids as a way to kind of build a relationship and a way to kind of show them ways to strategize and utilize some of the benefits of gaming. There's a lot of good benefits to gaming as well as there's a lot of cons, right? So pretty much going into the pandemic, we continued playing video games, but then we started kind of playing more randoms. Randoms is typically when a group of an individual goes online and they queue in with whoever, whatever the server gives them, or whoever the server gives them. And so then you're able to queue in with people that you don't know, they're complete strangers. And then you have conversations and you work as a team with absolute complete strangers as you're kind of tracking towards the end goal, whether it's a victory or last man standing kind of deal. So during the pandemic, that's exactly what happened. We started playing with randoms, and then from that point on, honestly, it went um, from literally a couple of kids playing with us online to eventually building a Discord community. Discord, for some that don't know what that is, it's an actual like a server. You can set up these servers where communities of different types of video games can talk about gaming and those kinds of things. And so I've developed a Discord server, and that community became very active amongst the randoms that we were playing. People would always ask me, "Are you a YouTuber? Are you a content creator?" And I always told them no. They always said, "Well, you sound like a YouTuber. You sound like a content creator." So we just kind of created this kind of really friendly online community of different types of young men. And then eventually, I mean, obviously, that crossed over into different age groups, which also crossed over into different from young men to kind of co-ed. But predominantly, a lot of the people that do game online are young men, young adults, teenage boys, boys. And they find it as a sense of a release to be able to kind of, whether it's stress or kind of escape reality, as they kind of quote unquote say. But that's kind of the impact that gaming has had with a lot of different individuals over the years, that the sense of escaping reality. And that's something that what we provided was in the community when we started building this, kind of like not expect, not with intention. It's actually everything was unintentional. I guess you could say that the Holy Spirit or God definitely worked through this process, because as we began to realize that in the midst of all of this that was going on, that even though a lot of these young men or young boys were looking as a way to escape reality, they kind of fell into something that became more real, meaning that they were able to develop bonds and relationships that they never would have expected to build. They were able to kind of dialogue and open up about certain particular issues or problems that might have arisen in their life, things that they might have come across, and be able to tackle those things with a community. So too often I would get people that would Discord me at different hours of the night and pretty much say that if whether there was something going on in the community or whether it was something going on in the personal life, these are individuals that were looking for someone to talk to. What I've realized over the course of as as honestly the pandemic has truly shifted the way people, especially when you look at Gen Zers, Gen Alpha, now we're looking at Gen Beta. Those three different generations currently now, their line of communication is a whole lot different than your baby boomers, your
Yep.
millennials, and even some of your well, millennials will be Gen Yers, right? So
Yeah.
even millennials in the sense, and Gen Xers as well. Millennials in the sense are kind of what they call digital natives. So they kind of are able to kind of string between what is the digital world and the real world, where your Gen Zers are inundated in an Instagram, social media platform type TikTok atmosphere. So all of the information that is gathered is obviously everything's online. So that is a generation that doesn't know a life without the internet, right? So
Yeah.
that is not something that is not that would be something completely foreign to them if the internet were to be completely taken away. So the point in all this is when we started creating all of this, we realized that as we began to talk with different age groups and different people within the online gaming community, we realized that your Gen Zers and your Gen Alphas, these were the group of individuals that had a tendency of opening up more online than they would actually in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
So, and in this realization, as kind of the pandemic kind of freed up a little bit, and we were allowed to kind of go back into society, quote unquote, right? In that sense, um, we realized that in everything that we in all this that was going on, it was that there was this sense of kind of like where if a let's say a catechist, because I did I taught CCD, if I were to ask questions in a classroom setting, you would get utter silence. You would not get any responses. You wouldn't
Yeah.
get an engagement or no interaction. So a lot would put blame on that the pandemic kind of pushed that a little further. But then research also had shown that those who did game online didn't really experience much of that isolation because they were able to build and formulate community in an online environment because they were able to still work together even though they weren't in an actual physical real world space, but in the digital space they were still able to collab, work with one another, talk with one another, and be able to build that kind of relationship with one another. So again, having that as an opportunity for actual young men to be able to build and formulate healthy and good relationship with a moderator in the midst of that, that's kind of what I became in that year of 2020. And then so as all of that kind of as everyone kind of went back to school, those kind of things, those kids continued that group and community continued to keep in touch with us. So they would Discord us. In fact, it was kind of funny because my two daughters just said recently we had a couple of the individuals that would game with us in 2020 recently reached out to us, literally this past week, and said it has been years and that we haven't talked. So the memory, the impact that we've made on these different individuals, in the sense of like that they really enjoyed having community in a time that where they weren't able to experience that in a real
And
world setting.
yeah, and
So
that's so important to create community, and that's what Heroic Men is trying to do for men. But
mhm.
we especially want to reach our younger men. And my son has talked about us needing to get on to Discord. He actually set up a community for us, but I haven't engaged. There's so much
Yeah,
bandwidth, but that's where we need somebody to take up that banner to create the community for men uh, on in this. And I remember even before the pandemic, one of the one of the guys I know said he had one of his best conversations with his son ver- online, and they were in the same house, like because you identify how they struggle to communicate in person, and that's why it's so important to have avenues to communicate properly, because it also works the other way where stuff they would say and do, as was evident with the recent Charlie Kirk, like they'd never say this stuff in public to somebody, but they have no problem sitting behind a keyboard and spewing crap, as it
Yeah,
were. So
absolutely.
it's so having a moderator with that background, I this is amazing to hear what's happening there, and how do we continue to build that community for young men and invite them kind of out into the world and help them.
Yeah, absolutely, and like what you mentioned about the Charlie Kirk incidents and the unfortunate, um, that unfortunate situation that the country, the world, unfortunately witnessed. And I think in that sense, I think the one quote, and there's several quotes that I like that Charlie Kirk says, but the one thing that I like that he says is the whole idea of dialogue needs to happen. That's the purpose. It's important that dialogue happens because if it doesn't happen, that's when violence and a lot of hate and a lot of things come out because everything gets bottled up and kind of suppressed inside where you're not able to have that conversation. And that's kind of exactly the same kind of model we really do follow. And a lot of the things that we do here at Intercession Gaming, and as being the Catholic gamer, one of the biggest important things coming from that sense of being able to understand where a lot of this generation is a lot of their emotions are suppressed. And yes, when they get behind a screen or a keyboard, it seems like this unraveling of all of a sudden now I'm emboldened and I can say and do more. But I think this idea of being able to have this kind of and what I like about the games, especially the gaming community, the gaming world, is that it's not all keyboard; it's voice chat. So you're actually able to hear their voice and hear their tonality in the voice, so that you're able to kind of see and hear, or if the person's angry or they're disgruntled or something's wrong, and you get to know someone by the tone of their voice. So I think that's a very important factor that when it comes to like the actual gaming community, a lot of adults and older a lot of people within the older community generation think that it's just nothing but gaming, and then you're just kind of talking back and forth via like a keyboard or chat. But a lot of it's a voice chat, so the gaming world has really kept that part of the human element really as part of the experience of building, kind of like the idea of going online to game with your friends, which is why you see a lot of young men that are either married, or even single men, that they kind of have like this, like their Xbox console or PlayStation console, and they have a night with the boys to play Call of Duty or whatever game they're going to be playing. But the whole idea is that the reason why a lot of these young men do this is kind of like, and I like the title of the of the actual site in your guys' organization, the idea of heroic men, because in reality, that's exactly what young men do when they step into a video game. We want to be heroes. Naturally,
Yep.
that's why we want to be the one that's, that last man standing, the whole idea of like the classic 1980s, I'm going to do it for the team, Rambo style, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you kind of step into this environment where you want to be able to um, be this sense of to be able to make decisions where that are strategic and that kind of allow the individual to be able to recognize themselves as a hero. And I think we're all looking in our lives to be some form of hero or heroic in a point to where we're making a difference, whether it's in a gaming world amongst our four friends that we're playing with, or whether it's in a sense of even our workplace or maybe our school, our family life, wherever it is that we sit. I think young men have this natural instinct to want to be heroes,
Yeah.
and I think so too often. And going back to to when you talked about Charlie Kirk, that's that's a model and an example of what being a hero looks like. And the thing is that many people might have their own ideologies or ideas of what a hero should look like, but Christ teaches in the Gospels very, very, very evidently. And he teaches us that it's what leads us to be heroes is when we do things with love and compassion, and we do it with the intent of drawing people closer to the cross. Meaning that when we draw people closer to the cross, it's at that moment we begin to realize that these are there are things in my life that I might need to change. that I never realized I needed to change before. And I think in those aspects, I think young men such as Charlie Kirk is a great model and example of what it means to approach things with with love and compassion. A lot of the saints and martyrs that went and delved into the political sphere. A lot of them in so many different situations and scenarios were at a point where they approach things to bring common sense and to bring moral understanding to a society that needed it. And I think sometimes we're afraid because we're afraid of the persecution or the outcome of what might happen. And I think Christ is a prime example of what he taught all of his apostles. I mean, he didn't tell his apostles right out the door in the midst of all of this to say, hey, by the way, you're going to be patted on the back and complimented and you're going to be rewarded with so much glory and people are just going to love you. No, he very well said that you'll be disliked. You know, you won't you're not gonna there are gonna be a lot of people that are not gonna like you in the midst of all this. The individuals that are kind of going with the flow of what the society or what the world teaches. And we see that evidential throughout the Bible, right? We see it very, very evidential throughout the Bible, from the book of Genesis all the way to to Revelations and the prophecy in Revelations, that the whole thing is that we as human beings naturally gravitate towards a society of kind of pagan ideology because it seems it kind of seems somewhat sometimes to a human person more of a natural fit when in reality it's really unnatural. And so we don't realize that in the midst of that, how do we use the tools and the gifts that God has given us in the world, and how do we utilize these different platforms and media outlets and gaming as a way to draw closer to Christ, but as a way to also to be a part of the human experience. At the same token, being able to say, hey, look, this might be something you enjoy, just like the way how some people might enjoy, beer tasting or wine tasting. There are things in our life that we come across, or whether smoking cigars with their buddies, right? There are things in our lives that provide the sense of community, dialogue, and being able to allow us to be able to build relationship with God through these different bonds. And I think it's important. I think it's super, super important. And whatever avenue and way that we can do that to provide that, one of those spaces we saw that lacked, my wife and I, in the as we kind of founded the company, we saw that the digital space was lacking. Because every time we went on YouTube, every time we tried to looked up something about gaming, all we heard was nothing but negative responses or negative feedback towards the gaming community. So then, if there's a group of individuals that enjoy it, it makes it very difficult for those group of individuals to feel like, well, this is what I really enjoy doing, but there's nothing for me if I want to further my relationship with God, because I enjoy playing video games, but everyone's telling me that video games are evil. So
Yeah,
it kind of go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, and that's where there's so much that you've said that uh like the heroes, where we have on Heroic Men we have four modern saints, like you talked about, that did step out into that political realm, and St. Thomas More lost his head, Blessed Jersey was killed by the communists. Like these strong men that stepped out. But you also, like, for us, our charity here is God Squad Canada. So God Squad in the gaming community is huge. That's where most, when you search God Squad on YouTube and everything else, it's all gaming related, which my son explained everything to me. Uh, so that was quite often I'd use that as a hashtag just to see if I could bleed some of the gaming people over to listen to what we're saying to men. And you talk about those connections, and it brought up some memories. Like my son was my son's gaming. Like, they met a guy from Utah who ended up flying up just to come hang out with them. He'd never been away, and they just met on some gaming site, and he wanted to come up and hang out with the boys. And then I know his their friend. He actually ended up getting engaged to a gamer out of I think she's out of Illinois somewhere. But it's interesting to just see how those connections and that community is able to grow. And I'm excited to see where God is leading you in this area, and the call for us to maybe step a little deeper into this. Like I said, we created the Discord uh, place, but now we need to do the work to maybe help build the community with a younger guy than me. So
And so yeah, so like I said, what we're trying to do is something completely. I'm not sure if you've ever heard the term Arapagos.
no,
But the term Arapagos is a term that they would during the time of Saint Paul and the apostles, they would go out to these places called they would like be like a public square where debates would happen of ideological debates, kind of similar to what a lot of modern day public speech or type debates happen like on campuses or universities. So the Areopagos was a place where people would go, dialogue, and argue ideas. And St. Paul would go to these places called like these Areopagos, and he would bring the teachings of Christ and how we were supposed to live our lives according to Christ's teachings, where he would be arguing and debating philosophical views and ideas of what the modern day society of that time was teaching. But now, unfortunately, we live in a different time, and I guess also as well, fortunately, is that we have a new form of Areopagos. That Areopagos is the digital space. So I always tell people we're going out into the digital Areopagos. We're going out to the digital spaces where public debate takes place. Bringing Christ into the midst of those public spheres is very important in a way where it brings a sense of faith and reason. So, looking at Saint John Paul II's Fides et Ratio, we implement. My wife and I implement a lot of Fides et Ratio, Saint Thomas Aquinas, Saint Augustine's, the the teachings of the fathers of the church. Those are very important elements to incorporate when we're actually doing kind of even surface type material. We try to keep the theological themes in a point to where it could still draw people in, but they don't realize that there's a lot of depth to the surface type content material that we create. But it allows the ability and the it allows the ability in a person to be able to kind of go down the rabbit hole a little further. So the whole goal, like the way we have everything set up, is we have it set up so that we have our YouTube channel that we do, and on that YouTube channel, it's free to the public. Obviously, we want people to subscribe, and we incorporate where we do daily challenges, daily Fortnite challenges, or daily a gameplay challenge of whatever game that we're playing. But what we do is we take the daily readings and we make those daily readings into actual challenges within the game so that we're able to relate it to the youth and help them understand to say, the same way you saw us struggle in the game with the difficulty of this particular challenge is the same way we all struggle in life. And a lot of the challenges when it comes to scriptural challenges that we see, or when they're asking us to forgive, our enemy, or they're asking us to have love and compassion. These are daily challenges that we're faced all the time. And I think, like I said, I really do believe that it allows individuals. It really, really allows individuals to kind of step into a different place of understanding how that relates to an actual real world situation where we can relate it to them in a way where they understand how these daily challenges or these daily readings do challenge us. Even our gospel, and so we take the gospel readings is what we do, and we pretty much allow those gospel readings as a way to kind of to navigate the person watching to kind of see, okay, so where is this taking me? What are they trying to tell me? So it kind of it we do it with the intent of not sounding preachy. We do it with the intent of not sounding too in your face. But the idea is that we want to be able to lead them into a relationship with God. and to step um, into those different spaces of their journey, because everyone's at a different level. And our digital religious education program that we have, allows them to dig deeper. So when they watch our videos online, they'll have the option, if they want to further their understanding of scripture, or understanding of how to build that relationship ongoing with God. And we present um, the sacraments of the church and the faith in a very different light, that is actually tangible for any person of any faith. So that there's this sense of really tying it into where it's relatable, and taking really big theological themes and then breaking it down for individuals that might not understand those big theological themes,
Yeah.
and being able to help them uh, process and digest that information a little easier by putting it um, in a more relatable teaching or presentation for them,
It,
or gameplay. We're putting it in our gameplay.
it's almost like a online RCIA program or OCIA.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
While playing video games.
yeah, yeah. I could see where that could attract a few more people to the church. Uh,
Right, right.
and yeah, and this is exciting. And I know this is a whole area. Uh, my son was at one point going to study game creation because that's what he wanted to do, was create his own games. And I wanted him to create a God Squad game or a Heroic Men game. So it just to further those points that you're making, because you're right, young men strive to be that hero. All men want to be the hero, right?
Oh,
it,
absolutely.
it,
Yeah.
it, it's it's uh it's in our DNA. And I think that's where that platform where they went to hide or whatever, because the world was telling them that masculinity is toxic, and where we know that masculinity is a gift from God
Hmm?
that needs to be focused and tempered by the virtues. And we have Saint Joseph. There's no one better to kind of be that role model for. He was not a weak man. He was a strong man that took his family out of danger and went to Egypt. And like it's so important that we try to create these opportunities or adventure for our young men to exercise their masculinity in a safe environment. Well, not safe. There needs to be some danger, some
Yeah.
there needs to be some because like playing soccer where they don't keep score, they're gonna quit, right? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
they know that there has to be some risk of losing, and that's
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
the gaming, there's always the risk of losing. And
Oh, all the time, all the time. Yeah, I can count on how many times we have not won a game. I mean, it's more often than you think, right? And so when we play Fortnite, I mean, it's funny because in content creation, when you look at gamers, you'll get gamers that will display either their perfect game, or you'll get content creators that display even their failures and mistakes in gaming. But so too often you can shape, right, and mold whatever it is that you want people to see, the kind of gamer you are. Whether you're really good and never lose, you can easily illustrate that in a on online, because the power of editing, the power of multimedia, and being able to manipulate, right, content is super. It's one of the things that is done quite often. I've worked in marketing and advertising for over 23 years, so I know how that game works very well. But in the same token, too, when it comes to the losses, yeah, the losses I think are important for people to see, because that's why we when we upload everything, the way we do everything, we record it live. So everything is happening in real time, and then we upload everything that we've done like without editing it, because we want the viewer and the person to see the loss, even if we didn't win, because we want to be able to take that loss as a teaching, as an opportunity, as a lesson to teach something valuable from the loss. Like sometimes not everything in life's always about the winning part. It's about really it's about the learning, right? It's about the adapting. Like, okay, what do I need to do better next time so that I can, achieve a win, or what do I need to do better the next time so I don't get eliminated the way I got eliminated in the last game that I was playing. I think that's super important because of the competitive nature of having score or having points. I mean, that's what I love about the gaming world. The gaming world is not especially now that the gaming world's all about tournaments. You have esports really on the rise.
Yeah.
I mean, esports is not holding back on a point system. If you're not good enough, you don't you can't be a pro gamer. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just the reality. I mean, esports is not saying, oh, you know what, you get a participation trophy. That's not, they don't do that. I mean, it's really about, you got to put the work into the grit, and you got to be able to, as the young people say, grind the game. If you don't grind the game, and as young people also will tell you, kids that never go touch grass, those are the kids that get really good at the game because
Yeah.
they're the ones that are actually grinding the game to get better at it. And they'll look at what they'll watch videos of other pro gamers and
Yep.
other content creators, just like the way you watch an athlete, right? Your favorite athlete for a sport. Um, Same kind of concept. So I feel that gaming is where sports used to be in the early 80s, 70s, with a
Yeah.
competitive nature. Esports is, I think that's why a lot of young people are gravitating towards gaming, because in the esports arena environment, there is no everyone wins kind of concept. So
Yeah.
even when we would do our classes, I'd have kids in my class that would cry and that would be upset, and I would use that opportunity as a teacher. I'm like, hey, this is a good lesson. This means that we just got to work harder to get better at what we're doing, because not everything's going to be given to us, right? And
Yeah.
so, you step them through that with love and compassion, right? And to help them understand that these are growing pains, this is a good thing. And so when kids have stepped into our classroom setting, the parents have noticed a change in the outside world. Like, hey, my kid doesn't cry as much anymore because, they call me Sensei Bob. I used to, when I would play with the Patch Squad, our secular company, they would call me Sensei Bob, and they say, Bob, that my child's been like, he's able to like handle things a whole lot easier. Like he doesn't, when I tell him no about something, it's a no. He doesn't throw a tantrum. He goes, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is you're doing, thank you so much. So it's the whole idea of taking the gaming experience, and I always tell the kids, you can apply this to your real life. Like what you're doing here,
Yeah.
if someone tells you no in the real world, or there's a failure, don't do what you do here. Take this, and you'll see how like much better life can be, because you're actually learning something. Because if you don't take the opportunity to learn it, you're never going to grow. So a lot of parents have seen benefits of how being in a gaming community can really help them, kind of like being in a karate class or a football team, you know, which is why a lot of parents, you know, they do want their kids to experience some form of opposition, some form of, conflict. And I think you said the word right, a safe environment. And what we're talking about, the word safe environment, I think we're just talking to the sense of like, hey, you don't want kids being completely bullying each other all the time, even though that does happen in the classroom setting. um the intercessors and I will allow certain things to kind of play out, just to kind of see where things go, not with the intention of so they bully each other, but the intention to kind of, so it gives us an opportunity to be able to work with that personality or that characteristic, so that the characteristic of that person, so that we know that how we need to approach it. Because we approaching a person might be, we might need to approach a person a little differently than what you normally would, right? So then it allows us opportunity to be able to kind of really assess and look at the behavior of how the children interact with one another. And then so I'll hear them. They'll bicker, they'll fight, and then okay, all right, guys. And then so we'll calm it down, and we'll be like, okay, so what's going on? And then this person will say their part, and then this person will say their part, and then we'll work through it together, the problem together. So it allows for problem solving within the gaming community to say, okay, so you stole this person's loot, or you broke this person's building. Why did we do that? Oh, because da. So then it allows us to be able to say, okay, so then we're able to set rules and boundaries and be able to say, okay, so this and this and this. And so it allows them to be able to, again, create a sense of moral compass and a sense of respect and dignity for one another without the idea of saying, okay, guys, no one says anything at all to each other,
Yeah.
and there's no conflict in what we're doing, because conflict's going to arise in
Yep.
any community,
Yep.
and for to say that it's not going to arise is kind of ridiculous. So we always let parents know that in communities things like this will happen, but that's why the moderators here. We're here to kind of navigate these conversations and to be able to help them to step through these conversations. Say, okay, what's a better response, right? What is a better way to respond to this? Is the better way to respond is saying what you said earlier, or the better way to respond is to maybe ask the question, or maybe to respond in this particular way so that it doesn't create, maybe you don't come off as a person bullying somebody else, but maybe you're coming off as like, hey, that wasn't cool, blah blah blah, whatever the case might be, whatever the situation is. But it allows opportunity to be able to problem solve in the community. So that's something that we really worked on in our secular company called the Patch Squad, and we've applied that specifically to Intercession Gaming as a way to be able to formulate healthy relationships, because that's always important.
Yep.
We want people to build healthy bonds and healthy relationships, but we
Thank.
also know that not everyone gets along. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing about the work that you're doing. I think this is incredible. I'm excited to see where it goes,
Awesome.
uh, uh, and we'll be following each other. And my son will be doing the editing, so he'll give me some feedback on because he's a proficient gamer, and one of his buddies is like goes to tournaments and in the states and stuff because he's one of the top. And I forget which game it is, and that's where it's
Well,
hard to.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
plenty. There's a lot of tournament, what they call them, tourneys. There's a lot of some tournament games that you can play, and there's several games that have them now. It's incredible how
yeah.
vast and
It was
quickly it's grown.
one of the earlier ones because and I forget which one it was exactly, but
Probably war. I think it's World of Warcraft or something like that is one of them.
no, not
That's an older
that
one.
old. But yeah, I'll have to ask him. But
Yeah, you
yeah,
have to ask him.
he's a content creator, and it's amazing. Like
That's
people
awesome.
watch 6 hour videos of. Yeah, it's
That's
mind boggling.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for having me on. And like I said, if people want to find me, they can find us on intercessiongaming.com, and be able to get more information on what we're doing. And then they can subscribe, become a part of our email list, so we can send them updates of anything that we're doing as well too. So
Well,
that's the
thank
best way
you,
to get in touch with us.
and yeah, and thank you for joining us on Heroic Hotline today. Please send us any suggestions you have at hotline at heroicmen.org. We'd look forward to seeing who our next guest is. I got to get that one in the books. But yeah, we're extremely pleased to have Alex join us today. I hope you found this helpful and informative. And I'm excited because, as you know, we've had AI people on here, and we need to discuss all of these areas of possibilities for evangelization. So keep up the great work, and God bless you.
Bless you too.